when you go out and you are an entrepreneur, you're starting different things like that, or you've been in business for a while, rely on the people that you have built relationships with and pour into them.
And it's not only the relationships of the clients, the buyers, the realtors, but it's also how you treat the people that you work with. It's how you treat the people that my delivery team and warehouse team, they're critical to me.
Welcome back to the Regenhard Report. Today, I always say kind of special guest, different things like that. We actually do have a special guest in a sense because it's the first time that on the Regenhard Report, we have two Regenhards. So it's the first and only time. So we have Kim Regenhard, which is my mother. And I'm excited to have you on, Mom, here as a guest to talk about your journey. There's not very many people that have built such a reputation in the corporate world and then have transitioned to entrepreneurship. A lot of people will stay in that world for a long time, pretty much forever, and not really transition. So my mother, welcome. She's the owner of Palm Staging and Design. It's just staging design for different realtors locally, and has an extensive background. So welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Seems a little weird, doesn't it?
Right? It is a little bit weird. Usually I'm just getting phone calls, from you. Now we're sitting across here doing a podcast.
It'll probably be the most that we get to talk for a while.
Yep,
right?
it's very true. Very true. So, all right. So first of all, let's jump in. Let's talk about your journey within corporate America. You started, from, in a sense, the bottom, and you worked really, really high up and in corporate America, working for multiple, huge billion-dollar companies, right? Mm-hmm. So how did you did you want to get into corporate America, HR specifically, or how did you get into that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I started in interior design, which is really ironic.
Full circle.
I kind of come back to designing. But I switched gears along the way because I thought, I'd probably make more money in the business world. So I ended up going for my undergrad in business and psychology as well. I went on for an MBA, then progressed in different types of environments, from private companies all the way to major public organizations. Traveled internationally, did a lot of really fun things, challenging things within the HR world, which was great, great experience. Unfortunately, it really took me away from my family a lot, as you know, right?
I know, firsthand. I am the family.
But I really felt like, too, I developed a lot of great skills from the HR world. And from being in a corporate environment, I learned a lot about business overall. It's just ironic now coming into an entrepreneurial kind of field that it's like, I took advantage of a lot of what they could offer in a corporate environment, like departments and people, that you don't have now
right?
as an entrepreneur. So,
wear a few more hats.
Yeah, exactly.
When you get hired into a company, you're hired to wear pretty much usually a hat, right?
Right.
Now you're rocking a lot of different hats.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So,
what are some of these companies that you work for?
So I work for small organizations like U.S. Bioenergy and Mainstream Energy, but then also work for United Health Group and AT&T Wireless, and most recently I work for a nonprofit here in Naples called Grace Place for Children and Families.
Right.
So it was everything, and HR skills are very transferable, so I could work in a number of different industries. So fun, challenging. I had lots of opportunities. I'm very lucky that I was able to be able to learn as much as I could. But then I tried to retire twice. The first time, it was when I needed a break.
Right.
Dad was sick, and he really needed some special attention, and I thought I needed to retire at that time. But people have recommended you really need to have a life, and so I went back to work. And then the second time, I just said, you know what? In fact, I've designed some T-shirts with a logo that says, I'm not wired to retire, because I really am not. I love working, and I love feeling challenged, and being able to run a business is really fun now. And I'm learning a lot from you.
It's been fun. It's been fun. And it is, the thing about entrepreneurship is it's always evolving. Every day is different. You're constantly trying to improve, and we're going to talk about systems and stuff in a little bit later. But you're always trying to improve different things, and whatnot. But it's challenging. And if anyone's getting into it thinking it's going to be an easy cakewalk, they're in for a rude awakening. So you have worked for a lot of different companies. You obviously have an extensive background, and huge kudos to you on that. I think you've probably learned so much from these companies that allows you to apply to be an entrepreneur now. What are some of the big traits that you learned over the years from an HR standpoint? And actually, before I ask that question, let's go back for a second. When we talk about HR, everyone thinks negative, right? They think, oh, you're going to call HR on me, right? Like it's like kind of like a stigmatism, right? But like you did a lot more, right, than penalizing people, right, for doing something wrong in a company, right? HR is kind of a lot of the backbone for most companies, right?
Yes, I was able to work in a lot of, it's called organizational development and design. So I was able to work with a lot of senior executives to identify kind of where the business is going, then what does the organizational structure look like to support that, and then who will be the talent that will fill those seats to be able to push that business forward. So it was very much big picture. I had a lot of great, capable people reporting to me, which was super because I could rely on their skills. I don't have competencies in all those areas, so I actually had people that were a lot smarter than I am working for me and had better HR skills in some ways than I did. I like to lead people. I like to be able to see the business progress, so that's actually very fun for me.
So I think that's something that people, when they get into a business role, right, they forget that, you will probably outsource a lot of your stuff, right? If it's, basic stuff like web design, different things, like you're not going to do all the different tasks. And so that's probably something big that you learned. But what are some of the other traits through HR that you've learned that you now are really utilizing on a day-to-day operation for your business?
One of the things that I've learned is really writing a business plan is something that you automatically have to do in a corporate environment where you feel like you need to know where you're going, what are your goals, how are you going to get there. And I felt like even starting out, I needed to do that myself. I needed to determine what does my brand really mean? What is my signature in palm staging and design? And then what will my role be versus the team's role in that too? I have myself as the designer, but I also have a warehousing and delivery team that's critical to me being successful. And then I work with a lot of suppliers, a lot of key partners that provide me with inventory, furniture, and a lot of those people are my friends as well. But we work together to really be able to accomplish that. So I think those skills in being able to set your objectives, being able to know where you're going and how you're going to get there is really important. I think what I didn't expect was probably how unpredictable this business is. And I think in a corporate environment, you have historical data, you have analytics, you have predictive indicators that will kind of lead you along. You kind of know what the year is going to look like. My strategic vision in corporate may have been 1 to 2 years out, maybe 3 years at most. Here, it's maybe 1 week, maybe 1 month.
So things change really quick is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I don't know what I don't know. So there's a little bit of not being able to be very strategic in my role. But that's also very fun because it's hands-on.
Yeah, and you got to learn to pivot, right? I mean, you got to be able to adjust to it, and you got to be able to pivot, very quickly with the business. Otherwise, it could be detrimental to the business, right? Where in a big corporation that's a big ship that's been moving at the same pace for a long time, it takes a lot, right? It takes a lot to really disrupt it or get it off path. And small little changes to that will give you big rewards, where in a small business, you got to learn to pivot all the time. It's a good analogy. It's like a ship, right? A big cargo ship versus like a little jet ski, right? Or a go fast boat, right? It's constantly changing, moving and whatnot, where the big boats don't move. So when you created the business, right, obviously you're learning a lot of these things. You're wearing different hats, right? How's the systems been? We've kind of talked about that.
Yeah, it's what systems?
Literally.
But we've just recently invested in Stage Force, which is for stagers, and it's a great inventory management system. I think it'll help not only from a design standpoint, but also it really will help from in an inventory management and even our accountant to be able to pull reporting and those kinds of things. So I can't wait to really be able to leverage that system to its full capacity, because that's going to make a huge difference. I don't have a lot of process in my business right now, so I do miss the process. I think I've said before, it's almost like a love-hate relationship. I hate process, really, personally. I don't like to do it, and I don't like to be restricted in the way that I have to follow the same process every day. But yet, when you don't have it, you really feel like you need it, and you need to make sure you have some process in place. For example, for inventory, we really need to make sure that we have, I know where my inventory is, how much I have, where it is it staged in a home, is it in the warehouse? And I need to make sure that I'm not overbuying and purchasing inventory, because if I'm buying it and it's sitting in the warehouse, I'm spending a lot of money in warehousing fees. But yet at the same time, if I have multiple projects going on, I need that inventory. So, and being as proactive as I can, I'll get the best price. But yet at the same time, you can't be too proactive and have it sit in a warehouse and spend money there. So those are the balancing acts and the process that we need to have in place to make sure that we're as efficient as possible.
Yeah. And the thing is, you've probably learned a lot, doing it. It's like you thought one way, right? And this goes back to being able to pivot, but you thought in a certain way. You thought it was all going to be, it's going to happen like this. But you said it already, you don't know what you don't know, right? And so I think if you're an entrepreneur and you're getting out, business plan from a big, high level, 30,000 foot overview is great. You need to know your end goal or what you're striving to achieve, right? Speak it into existence. But understand that path is not probably what you're thinking it's going to be. It's going to be lefts and rights, ups and downs, and everywhere in between. A lot of backward steps, forward steps, different things like that. So being ready to adapt to it is critical. So and I know from my side, as we're talking about systems, just because you have a system doesn't mean tomorrow you're going to have the same system. All right. In the bigger corporate world, you probably took whatever system was there and perfected it, right? Where like when you're an entrepreneur and you're running your own business, like sometimes you have to switch. Sometimes you have to completely, redo everything, right? And it can be a lot of work and stuff like that. So you're not always going to use the same system time after time. You might have to pivot there too. So not to scare everyone, right? Everyone's like, but on this podcast, the whole point of this is to be very raw and authentic in regards to what it takes to be an entrepreneur. So,
and it goes back to garbage in, garbage out. So you can have a system, and if it's not being used and the data is not being entered into the system correctly, then it's worthless. So you could be spending money on that system without really getting the benefit or getting the bang out of that money. So
right.
That's really important that we're all moving in sync there to make sure that this can work to our advantage.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so now you built a business. You have a lot of relationships, different things now. But how did you get started? I mean, like, what did you do to start growing? Because a lot of people get into a business and they think it's just going to happen overnight. They think that, I have a website and I have a phone number. My phone will start ringing for business, right? I know you did different things. You took a lot of your weekends and different things. So what did you do to build your business?
I think you're referring to my open house. Every Sunday I go to open houses because it's like, that's where I'm meeting a lot of people. And I specifically target open houses that maybe are vacant, because that's really my sweet spot is vacant staging. and then also maybe one that has a lot of older furniture in it, and it could use some refreshing and some updating. So I tend to go to those. I'm in the luxury staging market, so I go to more of the higher end stages as well, and I meet a lot of realtors one-on-one, and it is about the relationships. Some of them I know already from your events and from just personally seeing them and being out.
Mom is the head volunteer at all Real Producers events, so she's been at all of them to help out and navigate everyone. So, it's funny, and not to interrupt you, but like literally, as I host these events for Real Producers, I'm blessed to see everyone, and I'm excited to see them. And the first thing anyone says is, "Oh my gosh, I met your mom tonight," and it's like, "Hey, how are you?" It's like, I swear, in one night, I hear that more from every single person than anything. "I met your mom tonight." And I'm like, "Yeah, how are you enjoying the event?" So it's too funny. So obviously you make an impression on everyone.
Oh, well, thank you. And
Yes.
and likewise, I hear the opposite of that. I hear that, "Oh, your son is so nice." It's like, it's like he's such a guy.
Well, I had to get it from someone.
Yeah,
So
exactly. I say, well, that's good. He's my one and only. I'm glad it turned out okay. But anyway, so yeah, I think being able to develop those relationships, going to the open houses, has really worked. I'm relying on referrals right now, to tell you the truth. So that's a good news story, right? That means I'm doing something right as far as going out there and being able to show what I can do. Again, it's my signature, it's my brand. I tend to buy high end. We've already had this conversation where I spend too much money on my inventory. But yet at the same time, I want to stage a home that feels like a home. I want it to be better than a model home. I want it to be something that a potential buyer goes into that space and they go, "This is the kind of furniture I'd buy. This is where I want to live. I just want to grab my toothbrush and I want to move in right away."
and they can do that, and that's something that you offer to the realtors too. Some stagers might not want to get rid of the inventory because it does take a lot to get it all back. But you're staging it to that, and that's a huge selling point. I spoke to some of the realtors that you've worked with, and they love that. They're like, it gives another option to a potential buyer, right? And they love presenting options, right? to pick from. You said it's about those relationships and referral. I remember from a young age, a statement you made to me: "It's not what you know, it's who you know." And that has stuck with me for my whole life, and it's so powerful. And it's been obviously critical to you too, right? That's the referrals. So when you go out and you are an entrepreneur, you're starting different things like that, or you've been in business for a while, rely on the people that you have built relationships with and pour into them.
And it's not only the relationships of the clients, the buyers, the realtors, but it's also how you treat the people that you work with. It's how you treat the people that my delivery team and warehouse team, they're critical to me. The suppliers of furniture, the ones that provide me with the most discount, I buy the most from. But they're also the ones that are very ethical, very the type of people that you want to go have a cocktail with because they're just good people.
Right.
And I think it's the whole concept of relationships as well.
And you're building a team, and that is so critical in any business. Is you have to have a team, right? You have to have people in their lane, right? Because you call me all the time to pick things up and put it down, right? That's why you have, the movers or different things like that, or if I can help out. But, it's like, obviously you can't lift these things, right? So you need them, right? And maybe vice versa. They look at you and they're like, "Kim, where do I put this? Like, I have no clue where this even goes or even what it is," right? And so finding your weakness, right? And finding their strengths and pairing them together. And that's, truthfully, I know that's where you're so good at because that's what you did in all of your career as HR, right? So it's finding the people to fill the right spots.
It is finding the right skills, finding the right individuals with the right aptitude and attitude to be able to really help you out and that want to grow with you. And I always tell people to hire beyond what you are today because we're going to grow this business. I mean, we've already started talking about ways that we might expand the business beyond just your normal staging.
Yeah.
And I think that's exciting. And again, when you're looking at talent, you need to make sure you're hiring talent for the future, not for today's needs.
Right. So looking ahead, is the big thing. So, all right. So, I mean, you obviously stage and you help, increase the value of the home. Why is staging so critical?
Design sales, staging, maximize the value that a realtor can sell that home for. And in most cases, it sells faster. So I think for all those reasons, staging makes sense. And it's funny because the stagers before me all had to do a lot of education. Now realtors understand the benefit. They understand the value that staging brings to the whole concept. And like you said, they can offer options then. Do they want the furniture? Do they not want the furniture? I think as virtual staging will change and as it continues to get more and more realistic, I think more realtors, if they're not using any staging today, will probably lean into that, which is great. It's a great first step. But I think also as if people are using virtual staging and then the buyer comes into the house, sometimes that kind of starts off on a little bit of a negative because they're kind of going in and go, oh, I thought this house was staged. I wanted to see the furniture in here. So, it doesn't replace staging, but it's a good first step. I think if you can't do anything else, you can't afford anything else, virtual staging is better than nothing.
Right. So, and you've told me this too, is talk about how there's options, like there's different steps in when they would bring you in, right? Sometimes they bring you in when they first get the listing. Sometimes they get it when they can't sell it, different things like that. So talk about that. You've come in, you've helped to, in a sense, they're struggling to sell. Instead of reduction, they've utilized staging. So talk about how there's different options than just, doing a price improvement or reduction. Right.
And a lot of people are. I'm saying I watch the real estate market constantly because obviously my business is very sensitive to the market conditions. But I see a lot of price reductions, and I think, gosh, they just dropped that house by $100,000. You could get a lot of staging for $100,000. So I do hope that people will consider staging before they continue to reduce the price of the home. And I think my job is to come in and make sure that I'm listening to what the realtor really wants out of that property as well. Who is the buyer? What are the demographics of the buyer? When I walk into the home, what I like to look at too is if I'm a buyer of this home, how do I want to live here? Is this a boating community? Is it downtown where you're going to be entertaining a lot? Is it a very casual environment where you're going to go stroll on the beach and you want to sit with a glass of wine and read a book? So all those kinds of things is what I consider when I go into a house, and what is the right lifestyle that I'm trying to get across with the staging. So I think that's real important.
So what is the common stage, right? Like what does most people want here in Southwest Florida?
I tend to go with a lot of neutral tones. So a lot of my furniture is white, cream, tan, and then I will accent it with other colors because those colors are first of all, they photograph well, and they always say your first stage is, your first showing is online. Mm-hmm. And then secondly, I think with the neutrals, it's more serene. And I think that's what people are looking for. They want that tranquility. They want the softness of the environment that we live in. And then I think you need to have some level of balance in your home, which is really important. You might have some wood tones over here. You need to balance it with wood tones over in another area. And then texture. Texture is really important because people, they feel texture, they see texture. The layering is critical to making sure that you decorate and you furnish with those three components are really critical in for any designer to make sure that they weave into their concepts.
It's funny because I knew you were good at design and whatnot, right? And obviously you had a passion for it when you were younger. But as I'm building right now, right? Me and Clarissa are building a house. I've been relying on my mom for a lot, and there is so much that goes into the selection process, the build process, and everything. So, I will be one to admit, I didn't see as much of a value. Like, why would I pay someone else, in a sense, to come in and make all these decisions? And I will say, wow, like, I understand now, because as I'm going through this build process, like, there's so many decisions, there's so many options, like if you type in wall color, right? I mean, you can get the Sherwin-Williams and there's 1,000 different colors. Like, how do you narrow that down? How do you even start, right? There's a lot, in a sense, to decide from, and it's extremely overwhelming, and you'll sit there and spin your wheels for a long, long time. And so, like, again, it could be this, we're talking about design right now, right? But it could be in so many different ways, right? And so hire and utilize resources, look for peers, relationships, whatever it is, to help you navigate that path, right? In this case, we're talking about design, but it could be in so many different ways. It could be coaching, it could be business, it could be, relationships, whatever, right?
Right. Looking for skills that you don't necessarily have. I mean, I feel like I've always had a natural eye for design. And yes, I've always liked style. I've always liked design. But I am not a mechanically inclined person, right? So I appreciate people.
Yeah, I can agree with that. The laundry list of things when I come over and she's like, can you come over and fix this and fix that and fix that? And it's all electronic.
I know, it is, because I'm not wired that way.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's just like when we were talking about boating, and it's like when we had one engine, I could handle one engine. When it got two, I just couldn't figure that out. It was like, my mind doesn't work that way, but my mind does work to say, okay, what is the landscape that I have to work with? And then how would I best really pull out the attributes or the positive components of this house, whether it's on the waterfront or, again, if it's downtown or it's a bungalow or a cottage. How do you make sure you leverage that so that someone comes in and says, oh, wow, this is where I want to live, and you want to make it move-in ready. So again, better than a model, because sometimes models can be somewhat cold. They look too prescribed. You want it to be...
They look like a hotel sometimes.
Yeah. It's like the dresser, the two nightstands, the two lamps, and everything looks too...
There's no flair to it, yeah.
And I think what you really want is something that look like homes. When I was in Clea Bay, someone came into my condo and they said, this feels like a home. Like, all the units in here are so well done, but they feel like a showcase. They feel like a model home. Where someone actually gave me a compliment and said it feels like a home, which is really nice. It goes back to the layering. It goes back to how you want the feel of that. And what we want, my job is really marketing as much as being a designer. My role is to help sell that house. And I want to make sure that whoever comes into that property, they see themselves living there. And they say, I could move in, I could bring my family here, and we could entertain by Easter. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, makes sense. So how's it been creating a business? Is it really easy?
And it's so funny because in HR, I didn't have sales objectives, right? It's not like I had to go out there and push the business or push myself and tell my story. So it was very different. So Andrew's been he's been helping me along the way, because I truly have, I say, I've sent out 10 proposals. What's the deal?
Right.
And it's like, Mom, that's nothing in comparison to what some people deal with, But it took
a lot of no's, right? A lot of no's, a lot of L's, right? I actually saw something this morning. I think it was on social media or something, and it was like, you can't spell million without a couple L's, right? Or you can't achieve it, and it's like so true, right? Like, to get to a spot that you want, you got to take the losses, right, before you can get to the wins. So it's a lot of them.
Yeah, it is, and but it's been fun to learn the process, and I've learned from each one of those what I might do differently. But it's also that now I feel like I'm kind of relying, because you build your credibility, and so once you have a few really positive experiences and good examples under your belt, it goes from there. And so I feel lucky that I've had the referrals so far.
And, it goes back to something that I believe, honestly, is probably brought up in every single podcast. It's having the confidence. Okay. You've been very successful in the last line of work. You are passionate about design. You've had raving reviews on your personal homes, different things like that from people. They always say it. They tell me, they tell you, right? And so you've, in a sense, already had a lot of that confidence there. But to the listener out there that doesn't have the confidence, you need to have it, and you need to keep believing in yourself, and truthfully, sometimes, right, you call me and you are really excited about a proposal and you think you're going to get it and you're confident about it, and then you don't get it, right? It's like when you get bucked off the horse, you have to get back on. So yeah, you might lose that proposal, you might not get it, or whatever it is, right? They might crush your soul, right? But that's where the entrepreneur comes in, huge, right? You have to persevere through it. You have to be confident in yourself, and you have to get back up, and you have to go get that next proposal, right?
Yeah, and I think having confidence in all areas is something that doesn't naturally happen either. So I may have confidence in my design skills. Like I know I can wow someone with my design. But you know what didn't have confidence in is, am I gonna make any money in this business? Have I put together a business plan that has covered my expenses well enough, or that I can float from? Because one of the barriers of entry for a stager, if you own your own furniture, is going out there and purchasing all this furniture up front. And because I have expensive taste, and because I
really expensive taste,
high-end furnishings, I need to make sure that I can run a business. So I lack more of the confidence in, is this business going to be successful? So it doesn't mean because you don't have confidence in one area, you don't have it in another. It's just that now that you're an entrepreneur, you need to make sure that you can manage all aspects of that business. And again, augmenting your skills with someone else's is really important. So you have been a good sounding board for me. So
that's what I'm here for, right?
Role reversal here. It's like sometimes, you've learned everything, or I've probably taught you everything that I can probably teach you, but now it's my time to learn from you.
Well, I made a lot of mistakes, and that's what the things like is rely on your relationships, and we've said it already on this podcast. We've said it on other podcasts, but it's like, you don't know what you don't know. And you've said that today already, but like, tap into someone. If you know someone that has failed, someone that has done what you're struggling at, ask, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to say no to you. Okay. But then ask someone else, so it's like, find, I've failed plenty of times. I make mistakes all the time, but I've learned from them. Right. And that's the key to it, is when you do fail, or you get told no, or, you get all excited about something and it doesn't come to fruition, just find something that you can take positive away from it. So Mom, Kim, I don't know how I was supposed to do this. But at the end of the day, I really appreciate you coming on here. I know it probably is uncomfortable being interviewed by your own son on a podcast, but I appreciate you coming on here and sharing your knowledge. You're definitely different in a lot of our guests, that you had such an extensive HR background, and you've taken what you've learned and you now apply it to your business. I will say you've gotten amazing reviews from the realtors that have used you and work with you. So we appreciate in the real estate realm here. And I just want to say thank you for coming on here and telling your story on the Regenhard Report.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. I know it's funny because from an HR background, I was the one always interviewing. I wasn't being interviewed. So,
well, tables have turned, right?
Oh, role reversal again.
Exactly. Yeah. So, well, appreciate you guys. All our information will be below. So if you want to reach out to her, or you need some staging, or you have some questions or anything like that, you can reach out below. Thank you guys. We're here at Venture X, and we'll see you guys on the next episode of the Regenhard Report.